Hey everybody, Titan here once again, and welcome back to some Assetto Corsa, as it's time for a tutorial video today. Now, I'm going to be talking you through hybrids and how to get a good idea of how to get used to them. And I'm doing this because, well, one, there isn't that many tutorials out there, and the second bit is that hybrids have a very different way of being driven compared to the old naturally aspirated V10s, V8s and V12s, and there's a lot going on. It's almost like the difference between a Spitfire pilot in the war and someone who flies a Eurofighter today. They're both planes, but one's as basic as you can get, and the other is quite literally controlled by computers. Now, I've had quite literally no comments asking me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. The hybrid seems to be a dirty word amongst petrol heads and motorsport fans. Motorsport fans don't like them because they got to see Formula 1 in the so-called glory years of the early 2000s when engines had 10 cylinders and revved to 19k, and petrol heads don't like them because cars such as the Toyota Prius are associated with smug, pretentious eco-mentalists that scream, "Look at me, I'm saving the planet!" through a megaphone. Now, whether we like them or not, hybrids are the engines that are used in Formula 1 today, and they've been used in Le Mans even longer. To the uninitiated, they can be very confusing, and it can be difficult to grasp how these things work. So to demonstrate, we're going to use the RSS Formula Hybrid 2017 mod. This is a modern Formula 1 car that has all the information we need to deal with on one screen. But this can be applied to the Formula 2018 mod by RSS, the official Ferrari hybrid content from Kunos in Assetto Corsa, VRC's 2015 Williams, and even the LMP ones from Audi and Toyota that are in this game. And I guess this can be applied to iRacing as well, but I don't know how all that works, because I don't do iRacing. Yet. Now, a lot of the theory part of this video comes from the guide that was released in conjunction with the Ferrari SF15. So I've adjusted it to try and make it as easy to digest as possible, add my own bits and pieces, and try to demonstrate each bit in practice. Now, I've got a teaching degree, so I can appreciate that some people learn by doing, others by watching, others by listening. Visual, audio, or kinesthetic, or whatever the hell it was, it was a long time ago, and I really don't like children. I'll leave a link to the guide in the description so you can read at your own pace if that's your thing, or you can pause, rewind, or whatever helps you. I'm equal opportunities here. So before we get onto the track, we need to look at the components that make up the hybrid system and understand what it is we're working with, and describe all the terminology that gets used with these highly complicated yet immense pieces of mechanical engineering. Now, first up is the ICU, the internal combustion engine. In a Formula 1 car, this is a 1.6 litre engine which on its own will deliver somewhere in the region of about 600 horsepower. The engine, in turn, has a turbocharger bolted to it to allow it to produce a similar amount of power as was in the old 2.4 litre V8s that were used in 2013. Now, what the turbocharger does is suck air in, compress it, and then fire it through the engine to provide more consistent and larger combustion in the engine to produce more power. The turbocharger alone is worth about 100 or so extra horses, so we're looking at about 750 in total, give or take. Now, due to the regulations from 2014 onwards, the revs are capped at 15,000 RPM, with the fuel flow capped at 100 litres per hour. But teams will tend to cap their revs around 10,500 to not just save on the engines that now need to last about 7 races, but because unlike the V10s and V8s, these engines do not need to rev so high to produce the same amount of torque. Next is the MGU-K, which is a close relative of the old Curse system found in Formula 1 cars since 2009. This system uses a flywheel attached to the rear axle that charges a battery under braking and deploys it to the rear wheels under power. Deploying this system, now known as just ERS, adds roughly another 160 horsepower to the ICU. Now, this system is not unique to motorsports, but hybrid cars such as the Hyundai Ioniq, the Toyota Prius and the Honda HR-V also charge their hybrid batteries under braking. Under the regulations, the energy that is harvested at a lower rate than it can be deployed, so a balancing act is required. Now, MGU-K basically translates to Motor Generator Unit Kinetic. In addition, we also have the MGU-H, which is Motor Generator Unit Heat. Unlike the MGU-K, which is limited to 2 megajoules of charge per lap and 4 megajoules of deployment per lap, the MGU-H has no energy restrictions. What the MGU-H does is supplement the power of the ICU and can be used and recharged as often as you like, while the MGU-K resets each time the driver crosses the finish line. Now all of this is very complicated, but these are just very scary names and not much else. Put simply, MGU-K is a KERS system on steroids, and the MGU-H is your magical hybrid go juice. I'm not expecting you to know every single bit of what each bit does, you just need to know the basics. So basically, I've just condensed the last God knows how long into 2 lines of Microsoft Word script writing. Simple stuff. So now that I've bored you half to death with the technical aspect of these engines, we now need to see how all this works on track. So we're sat in the pit lane at Silverstone in Assetto Corsa, and we can move into the setup screen and look at how we get this thing set up. Now it's also advisable to set up some buttons on your steering wheel as well, so you can adjust all of this on the fly, as you probably will need to from time to time, and most definitely in a race situation. So first off, at the top of the electronics tab, we have MGU-K delivery. Now these are profiles put in by the sim that are basically levels of deployment for the MGU-K, or the KERS system. We've got charging, which is virtually no deployment, just running on the ICU. We have balance low, balance high, top speed, and hot lap. Now some hybrid cars for Assetto Corsa actually have profiles for specific tracks like Silverstone, Spa and Barcelona. All this means is the MGU-K deployment will kick in at certain points, like a VTEC. MGU-K just kicked in, yo! On top speed mode, it will deploy very little at low speeds, and then deploy almost all as you pass through, say, 150 miles an hour. For hot lap, it will deploy almost all of it all the time, whilst on the balance profiles, it will deploy a lot at slower speeds and then deploy progressively less power as you get faster. One thing to remember is that on different profiles, the deployment will not start until the throttle has reached a certain level of travel. So for example, on balance low, the MGU-K will start delivering at around 120 km an hour at a rate of 10% of total deployment. So basically, whatever 10% of 4 megajoules is. It will peak at 80% of total power between 170 and 250k before dropping to 40 between 250 and 300k and 0 after 300k, if all that makes any sense. If it doesn't, I've made some graphs for you that show the different profiles and their outputs. Now in this car, you'll see on the steering wheel a yellow bar on the right hand side that is the MGU-K level. Like I said in the technical specs section of the video, this will reset to maximum every time you cross the start finish line, just like KERS used to. Now on my steering wheel, which is the Thrustmaster T300 with the Ferrari 458 rim, I have a button to go up and down these profiles, or if you want, you can just have one button as it scrolls on a loop. So underneath those profiles we have MGU-K recovery, which is basically how much regeneration you get when you stamp on the stop pedal. 100% is going to be the most aggressive harvesting, while 0 is going to be the opposite. Told you it was simpler than it looked. Now the temptation is going to be there to have it on maximum because all the harvesting, but be aware that having it on max or 0 will affect the car's behaviour to the extremes. A higher percentage will result in longer braking distances because the brakes are harvesting to their absolute maximum, so they keep them on longer, and this will cause oversteer on entry into corners. Turning it down will result in less energy being harvested, duh, but on the other hand, at least you'll stop quicker. Like anything with setting up a car for hooning around a track as fast as possible, it's all a balancing act. Like with the deployment rates, be sure to map something to adjust it. Now because I use the 458 rim, I have the traction control magneto switch thing as my little switch to turn it up and down. And it might be worth researching the car you're driving to allow you to apply different driving strategies, and charging strategies that is. MGU-H mode switches between the motor and the battery. On motor mode, the MGU-H can be charged as the car is driving along. On battery, it sends some of the magical hybrid go juice to the ERS system to give you that little bit more for longer. At least I think that's what it does anyway, I've never really played with it. And finally, we have engine braking. To put it very simply, turn it up to make braking better with more chance of locking the rear wheels, and turn it down to make the car more stable on braking at the expense of fuel consumption. One last thing you have at your disposal is the traditional KERS button. This is essentially a temporary max power setting that can be used to get extra power out of a corner. use as an overtake button, or whatever else you feel the need to use it for. So with the theory section of this video out the way, we can now try and put all of it into some actual driving practice. For as long as the car is on track, the energy is either being harvested or deployed depending on what the car is doing. And managing the systems is important for getting the most out of a car, and each circuit will generate different challenges and different strategies with how to best harvest and deploy the electrical energy. For instance, at Spa, you can't leave the car in hot lap mode or you'll run out of ERS by the time you reach Blanchimont. A way of getting around this is to leave the car in balanced high or even balanced low, and using the manual deploy button to override the MGU-K deployment on Kemmel Straight and the run from Stavelot to the bus stop. Now this tactic works very well at Silverstone, as you can run a decent downforce setup to get through the twisty bits and deploy all the power on the straights. At Monza, you may want to run the car in top speed mode so you only have the deployment when you need it at top speed, and you can get decent traction out of the slow first chicane. Top speed mode in turn is useless at somewhere like Monaco because you're never going to go that quick. There is also no point in deploying the ERS manually in Eau Rouge or Maggots and Beckett's because of the speed you're going to scrub off. By not using it, you've gained anywhere between 3 to 5 seconds of extra time to use coming out of slow corners. Best way to do it is find what works and what makes you go the quickest. So let's go out and drive this beast then, and I'll flick through the different profiles and show you what's what, and you can see the difference in deployment. So let's get to it. Alright, so Silverstone, using the new Sol mod, which is just unbelievably good. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to set the MGU-K delivery to charging. And if I press this button, you can see a blue light illuminate down there where it says ERS. That's basically the manual override so we can have max power. So I'm just going to pull first gear and drive away. Now you'll notice I've got the gear indicator on the left hand side there, and because we're on charging here, we're just using the ICU, so the little yellow bar on the gear shift indicator there won't go down, nor will the greeny, bluey, paddling pooly type of coloured bar next to it. There's also a blue bar that will go inside the orange turbo indicator that will go up and down depending on how the hybrid profile works. But since we're only running on the ICU here, it won't do anything. This is also the hard part, live commentary while driving around Silverstone. Ooh, excuse me. As you can see, we've got no power whatsoever as we come through Maggots and Beckett's here. So what I'll do, I mean, I can also deploy DRS if I want to, but really no point. We're just trying to see how the hybrid deployment works. So Abbey and Club, well, Club and Vale. Abbey's this corner up here. So we'll do a time lap. It's been a while since I've driven this car, to be honest, so I may lock the wheels from time to time going into that braking zone at least. Using fourth gear for Luffield because these hybrids have so much torque and no turbo lag because they use the batteries to spool the turbo up. I forgot how pointy this car is as well. I feel like I'm driving a McLaren rather than a Renault, how slow it is. Another lockup. Okay, let's put it onto balance high then. Well, you can see that blue bar now will change as the deployment changes. So it's at max and now it's dropped. You'll also be able to see that I'm up on my previous best already. Just got to be very careful with the throttle application now. Changing through the gears much quicker. You can now see that both the bars are going down, but when I hit the brakes, one of them will go back up again. Already hit the brakes a bit too hard going into Brooklands, but we can slightly parallel the other side. That's the old start-finish line. Don't need to change gear as high as I am either. So we're a second up already. And now manual deployment. Use it all on the straight. Just got across the line. Do you know what? Party mode. I hope that the difference in speed is apparent. I'm going to use DRS now just for the hell of it. Oh no! I knew that was going to happen at some point. Got to be too greedy with the old but if I put it onto charging now, you see that that blue bar is going to start climbing again. Especially if I hit the brakes. It's going to start charging anyway because I think it's set to motor mode. But what I'll do here is I'll show you how I would drive Silverstone. Put that down to 60. Balance high. Right, deploy the ERS. Turn 1, miss the apex entirely, that's a good start. Then just use the normal profile through the twisty bits. As soon as the car's under traction, deploy it again. Got a bit too greedy on the old downshift. Running out of hybrid go juice here. Out of hybrid go juice completely, and there we go across the line. 129.5. I can go faster than that. But I hope this has been a decent way of showing you how hybrids work and how to use them properly, I guess. But if you've enjoyed this video and learned something, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like this, as well as all the other things I do on this channel, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to support this channel in a more personal way, you can do so by going to my Patreon. So until next time, I've been Aidan Millward. Have a fantastic day wherever you live in the world, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Goodbye.